and it's designed to keep us alive. I think we can do a whole episode around the way that interacts and the way worry works.
So what sort of signs should we be looking out for to say that we're running on stress?
Hi everyone, and welcome to The Emotional Hustle. I'm Julie, I'm a mindfulness teacher and also the author of a book, The Emotional Hustle. And it's a book I wrote because I feel like we're all running on emotional autopilot and it can be absolutely exhausting. So this channel is going to be all about slowing down, how we reconnect with our emotions and just calm everything down. And joining me to help me along with some of the interviews is Mike. How are you, Mike?
Hi.
So Mike's going to be helping me to unpack some of those difficult topics and to really break them down into easy to follow steps.
I am. I know very little about this topic, so you know the phrase, there's no such thing as a silly question. Hold your thoughts on that one because there's going to be a few. But I'm going to bring it down to the lowest common denominator. So, what are we talking about today?
So I think we're going to start off with something that we all experience, which is stress and anxiety. And I think we tend to see stress and anxiety as something negative, but actually there is a positive aspect to it as well. So often we notice that if we're trying to reach a deadline, if we've got something on, if we've got a lot going on, we feel quite stressed. But there's quite a lot of energy around that. So it can feel quite positive. So in that context, stress is quite a natural reaction, and we have all of the adrenaline pumping around our body and it keeps us going, it spurs us on, it motivates us. But what tends to happen is that we quite often lose our ability to slow down and to reset. So we can start to feel stressed or a little bit anxious most of the time.
Right, so is anxiety and stress the same thing?
Well, the interesting thing is that if you go onto Google and you look at them, you'll find that there's a lot of commonality between the symptoms. So aggression, frustration, irritation, that sense of being on edge, maybe the extreme case where we even have a panic attack. But I think we associate stress with things that are positive. So maybe we think that our job makes us stressful and that's a sign that we've got a position of responsibility. Whereas the term anxiety is usually linked to a disorder like social anxiety disorder. So I think we tend to prefer to be called stressed than anxious. So I think if we peel back all of the stories and take them away, what we're actually dealing with in all of those cases, irrespective of how we label it, we're dealing with the fear response system, the older sort of part of the body, and it's designed to keep us alive. So millions of years ago, when we were hunted by predators, that fear response would have helped us to survive. So that pump of adrenaline helps us to escape. But now that same fear response might be triggered by an email, scrolling on social media, even maybe somebody who irritates us that we work with. You know, they might even just stand up and already we're feeling irritated. So the fear response is very, very natural. But what we've lost the ability to do is actually to reset when that fear is no longer there.
So basically our lives haven't caught up with our lifestyles.
Our brains
haven't caught up with our lifestyles.
Yes, that's true and false. Our original brain, which was designed to keep us alive, hasn't changed. What's actually happened is that we've had a new add-on, like a little bit of an extension, which is the executive part of the brain. And that can be a good thing or a bad thing. I think we can do a whole episode around the way that interacts and the way worry works. But that executive part of the brain really should be the one that regulates everything and calms everything down. And what tends to happen now is that we get into a number of thoughts, and rather than calm the nervous system down, it actually stokes everything up.
So, what sort of signs should we be looking out for to say that we're running on stress?
So people react in different ways, and we don't have a standard reaction. We react differently ourselves in different situations. So we might feel angry, frustrated, ready to attack. That's the obvious fight response. That urge to escape. So we might have an escape story where we feel like we've got to get out of a particular situation. And we even have that sense of overwhelm, and that's linked to the freeze response. So we might just shut down. And again, we can all experience different flavours of that. So, for example, if somebody attacks someone that we like, we might be more inclined to go into fight mode. Whereas if somebody attacks us, we might be more inclined to shut down. We all have different responses depending on the situation and the different triggers. Now, I mentioned before that we should be able to reset the nervous system, and I think it'd be a good idea to come on to how we do that. But I just wanted to say that resetting the nervous system is, if we can't reset the nervous system, that's when stress starts to spill over into exhaustion, because those chemicals of stress never have a chance to leave the body, so they're present all of the time. So we start to feel a little bit on edge all of the time. And then because we notice that we're on edge, we become nervous about losing our temper or losing our emotional stability, and that again adds to the stress. So we worry about that, and that again stokes up the stress response system. So it starts to be a bit of a circular type reaction where we're never able to switch off.
It's like when you can't even relax, even though technically you've got absolutely nothing to do.
Yeah, and I see this with a lot of people who come to talk to me when they're burnt out. They find that in the past it's worked. They've been able to use the weekend to switch off if they've got a situation going on in work. But then even the weekend gets invaded by stress, anxiety, worry. So it becomes a 24/7 type sensation for them. And this is when we're heading towards complete exhaustion and that need to just withdraw completely from everything that's going on, even the things that we used to enjoy.
So is that why you wrote the book?
So I wrote the book because I've been teaching mindfulness for a number of years, and I started to realise that what people are struggling with is more than stress. We need more than stress management tips. We need to understand our relationship with our emotions, how they were formed, how various situations in our life have helped us form our behaviours. So the book is really a way of exploring all of the aspects of our emotional system and how different situations have helped that to generate.
Cool. So on a practical level, what can someone actually do in real terms if they suddenly feel that they are overwhelmed?
Okay, so I was thinking about the best way to remember it for me and other people because my memory's awful, and I came up with an ABC. So the A is acknowledge. We acknowledge the sensations that are happening in our body. So we acknowledge that we're experiencing overwhelm or anxiety, and just naming it takes us back into a state of awareness. So now we're still consumed by that feeling, but we're taking a step back and recognizing that it's part of our experience.
ABC, you heard it here first.
So the B is about our breath, tuning into the breath. And this is absolutely amazing because the breath is always with us, absolutely always there. And I think because we live in our heads, we lose sight of the body and tuning into these sensations. So the in-breath is linked to the sympathetic nervous system, and the out-breath is linked to the parasympathetic nervous system. Too many big words.
They're not easy to say, are they?
As I've just demonstrated very well. So the parasympathetic nervous system is linked to rest and digest. Now the in-breath is linked to the sympathetic, out-breath linked to the parasympathetic. So what I've really complicated that. What we need to remember is if we make the in-breath and the out-breath the same length, and counting can help. So if we begin by breathing in to a count of 3 or 4 and breathing out to the same count, that brings our nervous system into balance. And if it works for us, we can even start to make the out breath a little bit longer. So we're really focusing on that rest and digest system and bringing that online. So breathe, balance the breath, make the out breath a little bit longer, and that's going to send a signal to the body that everything's okay and settle the nervous system down.
Just don't count too long, otherwise the other B will be blackout.
Thanks for that, Mike.
Here to help. C.
C is about contact, physical contact with the ground. And in mindfulness, we call this grounding. So just taking a seat and really tuning into the physical sensations of the feet on the ground and the butt on the seat. Just really tuning into the physical sensations. And again, taking us out of the headspace and into the body is going to slow everything down and bring us into that sense of being grounded, being safe.
I've heard that phrase so many times and I've never really understood what it was. People use these words like it just flows. That's so grounding, right? I get it.
Yeah, it's that connection with the ground. Now, before we go on, Mike, there is just one thing I'd like to say about the nervous system, because I think when we feel stressed or we feel like we can't cope, there is that tendency to go in on ourselves and criticise ourselves. And the interesting thing about the nervous system, I heard this from a psychotherapist called Alex Howard. Go and find him. He is on YouTube. We learn to settle our nervous system by tuning into how our mother settles her nervous system. So it's a form of human Wi-Fi. So if your mother couldn't settle her nervous system, then she hasn't passed that on to you. And by the same token, if her mother couldn't settle her nervous system, she hasn't passed it on to her. So it's a generational thing, and we sort of infuse it emotionally because when we're born, that's the only way we can learn, through feeling, because the mental part of the brain, the cognitive side of the brain hasn't formed yet. So, it's a lot of these things are beyond our control and they form when we're very young. What we can do when we get older, we can't change the past, but we can start learning to work with our emotions in a different way.
I wasn't smiling because that was all funny. I was smiling because George just walked across the floor.
He's determined. We haven't quite got him in shot yet, but I'm sure he'll turn up.
I'm not sure if he is in shot. George is our cat and he's just decided to join the podcast.
Yeah, and we're sitting on the couch because George is actually... We bought these cute little chairs for the podcast, thought they looked really professional, and George has been asleep on them. So, yeah. So we're on the couch.
Yeah. The things you do for cats.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the topic in hand. I like the approach. It's more about recognising anxiety rather than fixing anxiety.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that's the thing with all of our emotions. Emotions are a feedback loop. And I think we get bogged down in this right emotions, wrong emotions. But actually, the body has a lot to tell us about what's going on for us. The mind tends to tell us how we should feel and how we should behave. But it's actually the body that gives us the feedback on how things actually are for us and whether we're not comfortable in a particular situation. So it's learning to recognise those emotions and work with them and know how and come to understand what makes you tick as a human being, because we're all different. So I think we're coming to the end of the topic of stress and anxiety. If that material resonates with you, we'll be talking about mindfulness, emotional literacy, coming to terms with our emotions, narcissism, a bit of everything really. So, yeah, join us next time.
Yeah, and if you're feeling anxious right now, like I am, just know you're not on your own, you're in the right place. And if these sorts of conversations are what float your boat and you want to find out more, why not like and subscribe and see what else we've got coming up.
Thanks for joining us.
Bye for now.